What is up, everyone? This is Soul with another video. And the other day I was just talking about, oh, hey guys, what's going to happen in like the next expansion? And let's go wild and crazy with some ideas. So we're back here. We're going to do it kind of sort of again. Only this time we're going to talk about what's going to maybe happen in season 3. Not just what might be announced in the 10.2 announcement thing that could be going on as soon as next week, but what might happen throughout the season, because that might be fun to talk and speculate over and just try to have fun with it. Again, this is coming at it with we're coming at this with the energy of, hey dude, it'd be cool. Oh, that'd be terrible actually. Kind of like that. So we'll be a little bit more picky as to what may or may not happen, but we'll discuss some of the stuff anyway. So if you don't mind, like the video, subscribe for more stuff, and let's get past the intro and right to what's good. First off, player housing. Just kidding. It's kind of a weird thing to predict that there's going to be a 10.2.5 and a 10.2.7, but because we just don't know for sure yet, it's worth just kind of having this as a discussion point, because weird stuff could happen. This could be, for all we know, and this would be a wild thing. What if Dragonflight happened to be a bit of a shorter expansion? I do apologize for the construction work that is now just suddenly starting during this recording. Thank you very much. What if Dragonflight happens to be shorter than we think? There are a lot of folks that have been talking about, hey, you know what? Maybe WoW will go back to a summer schedule of releases, because previous expansions, Legion, Battle for Azeroth, those launched in August. And then because of circumstances, Shadowlands launched in November. And then by consequence, Dragonflight also launched in November. But there could be a chance that the WoW team might be like, hey, you know what? For reasons that we haven't shared yet, we really like summer releases, and we're willing to sacrifice a whole damn season to make that happen. Doubt it. I have a feeling I have a feeling that they're just kind of adapting to like what's new, or they're adapting to what they have now, and they're just gonna go ahead and proceed with that. But I do think that there's a conversation worth having there. A dragon riding mount expansion. Now, we've been seeing this over the past couple of patches, where we've seen more and more of these dragon riding mounts being converted. We've seen more regular mounts being converted to dragon riding mounts. Some things that we haven't seen yet, though, are things that obviously don't share dragon riding attributes. Like, we haven't seen rockets or flying carpets or discs or clouds or things like that being adapted for it. But I think we're going to continue seeing these things added until they're done. I have a feeling that they want to have, like, I'd say 75, 80% of the mounts done before they decide to really drop the hammer and be like, all right, cool, guys, we're going to introduce all of these mounts in at once. But they could do like a few at a time as well. It just really depends on how they want to go about it. But the thing is, like, they're not done. There's still quite a few to go. There are a lot of mounts in World of Warcraft, but they're getting a lot closer to doing that. And throughout the season, we might see an actual launch of people being able to take their regular mounts that have wings at least and be able to dragon ride with those. More druid combos is a very popular ask from players, because this patch is very hotly predicted to be something that centers around the new tree, Amirdrasil, that has been, of course, mentioned from earlier patches and earlier cinematics. And also, because of the connection with the Emerald Dream and everything, it would kind of make sense, at least in some people's minds, to have more druid combos. Now, of course, during the first season of Dragonflight, people were like, wow, look at all this elemental stuff that's happening. We're definitely going to see shaman race class combos be a thing. Everyone can be a shaman. Did that happen? No. Is the same thing going to happen here, where we see a heavy theme that's based on, maybe druidism, but not equate to a druid class combo? I think it's kind of likely. I kind of have doubts that this is going to be a thing, because I also think to myself, who's going to be worthy of being the next race that can become druids? Because I don't think that they're going to do everyone at once. I have a feeling that there would be like a really big loss of quality if they were to be like, oh yeah, sure, all the classes, all the races, they could be druids now, but they're going to stick to like the normal looking bear form that night elves had and night elves and druids had back in the day, and like that's it. And that would be pretty disappointing. It would make like the theme around that it would feel strong, but the actual implementation for it to be so weak, I think that would just be a setup for disappointment. So I'd rather see like, kind of a wait till it's ready sort of thing. I want to see something like this for an expansion launch where we get to see like on a big screen or on screen somewhere, like a showcase of like all these different race, all these new bear druid things from all the different races. I think that'd be like a much better presentation than what they might try to force in here. But for all we know, they might have it already. Everything might be all set up. I just doubt it. Drakthir class combos. Now, Drakthir have been a very integral part of the Dragonflight experience overall, but I also feel like at this point, at the end of Embers of Neltharion, the end of the end of season 2 content, that their story is kind of sort of done. The big bullet points, the big things that are happening, with them being freed, with them getting access to augmentation. I think that kind of concludes their story. But I think there could be more story to tell. It's just from what lens can they tell it? So it wouldn't surprise me too much if they were to start, maybe not in 10.2, but in a 0.5 or 0.7, they start to introduce class combos for the Drakthir because they're starting to branch out. They're starting to explore the world, figure out what's going on. Maybe there could be like, here's a story of a Kresh or of these Drakthir that did not have all the powers of the evokers, but then they're not just gonna throw them in a dumpster or anything like that. They're going to continue to raise them and nurture them and make them useful somehow, some way. So sure, why not? Cross faction next steps. We've had cross faction guilds just recently. One of the big critiques so far, though, is not being able to group up with other people in outdoor content, and I think more importantly, being able to queue up for certain group contents like Time Walking, Raid Finder, Dungeon Finder, that sort of thing. And my hopes, I guess our hopes, are that we'll at least be able to group up with fellow guild members or be able to group up via the group finder, make a pre-made group, and then be able to queue up, because at the moment, that can't even be a thing. So I definitely expect, if not going all the way, to at least let us progress to that next stage, let us queue up with, as a cross-faction group. Shouldn't be a big deal. It is, but it shouldn't be. Dynamic flying it kind of alludes to the dragon riding stuff that I was talking about before. Not only might we be able to get access to like having our old mounts be able to dragon ride, but perhaps our dragon riding mounts or perhaps regular flying will just be a thing over in the Dragon Isles as well. As for when, I'm not sure. I feel like the dynamic flying and the launch of being able to use your old mounts for Dragon Raid, I have a feeling that might be kind of a same time sort of thing. And as is, at least, when dynamic flying becomes a thing, the way that it feels like, it wouldn't surprise me to, well, there are a number of ways to implement this, but one way that I at least predict is that maybe we'll be able to take these winged mounts and cool, we have dynamic flying. But if we get onto a mount that otherwise can't do that, flying carpets, discs, rockets, whatever, those are going to have like just the old world flying forever. They're never going to have that same speed or feel of dragon riding because it just doesn't really work like that. Now, on the other hand, I definitely would, I would obviously support taking these old mounts and still be able to access the regular flying that we're used to in the old world. And maybe or perhaps with the dragon riding mounts that we enjoy now, I'd love to be able to, go back to town to be able to go back to the old world and get on those mounts, my customized mounts with the cool colors and horns and all that stuff, and be able to, have the old, swimming in the air kind of flying too. That'd be cool. And something that I figured would be like a thing the whole time. More Dragon Racing Cups. So the upcoming 10.17 patch, it's going to be out in a number of weeks or so. That's going to introduce, excuse me, that's going to introduce Outland achievements. And I think in the game data right now, in 10.15, there is the data for Eastern Kingdoms Cup achievements, I believe. Please correct me if I'm wrong. But whatever the case, they're going to continue adding more of these cups in, and I'm definitely here for it. This week we just had the Kalimdor Cup launch, and for the most part, even as a quick event, it's been pretty successful with some minor caveats with like some certain race difficulty. But I think overall it's worked out very well. My hopes is that we see more and that we'll see like this regular cadence of, hey, cool, we have here's the Kalimdor Cup, and then we're 2 weeks off. And then now we have, the Eastern Kingdoms Cup, and then 2 weeks off. And then we have another cup and another cup and another cup. So I get that it does feel a little awkward. I'm sure some folks just want to be like, hey, can we just get all of them available at once? But I have a feeling that towards the end, once we've done all the cups at least once, then maybe we'll have just Dragonflying everywhere. I think it's worth looking at how the schedule of these cups is going to look once we start seeing like an additional one and how the patches go, because that's going to, that could be like this really long-term plan that Blizzard has is to, okay, we know that we've been putting in all this flying brouhaha, but it's not going to be ready until like 11.0. That could very much be a thing too. But we're definitely going to see more cups and be able to participate in them, and I'm all for it. I want to think that there's going to be a pretty big profession update in this patch, but there easily could not. Now something to point out, one, people want more knowledge points, but also there's a number of folks that are done with knowledge points to the point where the WoW team, this is like, I think like a month or so ago, or at least a month ago, they hotfixed in something where you can spend your excess knowledge points and buy artisan metal. Now, of course, people kind of want the opposite. They want to be able to take artisan metal and buy knowledge, but beside the point. The fact that we're able to get rid of our knowledge points, though, it just means, it tells me that there's no future for knowledge points as they are right now. Even if the WoW team were to put in, let's say though, if the WoW team were to put in new specializations or new recipes that are locked behind specializations, they're going to have to introduce a brand new sort of knowledge point system, knowledge point 2.0, where everyone in patch 10.2 is going to start like at a even playing field. And that would be fair. I would hate to see something where people have like this definitive absolute advantage over others and everyone else is like screwed. So having something like this, it would be, like I said, it would be fair. I just don't quite know how it would be implemented. So if something like that isn't done, oh well. But kind of like with 10.1, I can definitely foresee there being new recipes, perhaps new materials that are attached to mining and herb and skinning nodes that we're just already familiar with. A crafting order update might come as soon as 10.17, as soon as the next patch, because I was at least predicting, and I'm probably wrong about this, there's like this arcane forge that's in Valdrakken right now, and I was predicting we might find out something new like later today actually. I was hoping that this will give us an opportunity to do region-wide crafting orders at a very limited basis. I think that there's something wrong to be said about if I'm able to craft anyone's stuff around the region with no limit. It would just mean that I would be advertising my wares across servers, and there'd be lots of awkwardness to it. But I think if there was a limited amount of times that we could do it per day, I don't know what that limit should be, but as long as it covers the idea of, hey, dude, I got a friend over on another server. They need help. They need something made. I can do it because they don't want to pay that kind of money or whatever. And with the way materials are tradable these days, I don't think it's so much of a stretch to be able to do a cross-region sort of work order. I provide the materials and I hook my buddy up. I don't think that's a big deal, because then it'd be like, oh, otherwise I'd have to be like, okay, I got to trade the materials to them. It'd be weird. So let us get region crafting orders, but on a more limited basis, to make it fair and not really exploitable. And I'd appreciate that. Another account-wide experiment, this time with Renown. So we are going to get a new Renown track in 10.2. That's on the roadmap. That's going to happen. But I'm also thinking to myself, the WoW team is like slowly building this idea of an account-wide system. And we've seen a little bit of that with Traders Tender, We've seen a little bit of that with the weekly quest for completing a time rift. That is an account wide thing. So I could see maybe not old renown. I don't think that they would grandfather this in, but I think future renown this is something that we can experiment with. So kind of hear me out on this. Let's say there's a new renown. Woo, it's a green dragon thing, whatever. And there's a weekly quest. You do the weekly quest and you get, the full value of that reputation. Whoop-de-doo. It could go a number of ways. We might be able to switch to other characters and, that quest for the renown, or the quest for the reputation, a big chunk of reputation, maybe that's shared across the account. And then you can turn it in once and then boom, there's your first big credit. But then afterwards, you can for the most part, hard grind that rep, much like you could for some of these other like for these other renown sources. But it's going to be like pretty slow. So that could be a thing. And it would be, I would argue that it'd be kind of easy to implement. I'm sure on a technical level, it would be much harder because I think to myself, well, what if I'm on 2 accounts? Does that mean that if I'm on 2 accounts, I effectively get double the rep all the time? How would that be handled? So I'm kind of holding out hope that there might be a cool experiment around this and they handle it in a tasteful way. But I think in the far future, we're going to definitely see an account-wide system that follows that sort of model where, you only have to do certain activities once across the account, but there are grindable ways you can do it. You can do it on any character, but it's going to be a pretty slow grind. It's just, at least you don't have to feel like, oh, I got to do it again on another character. Here we go. Because by principle, there's just, there's a lot to be desired there. Another support spec. I might as well do something to bait the commenters. So what if, in another 0.5 patch, just like the Drac there, they introduce another support spec to existing classes? Like, let's say, what if Demon Hunters get some sort of support spec of some sort? Some sort of castery thing where they empower people with the friendliness of fell magic. Sure, why not? Now, I totally doubt this, but I might as well introduce that thought into people's heads because the WoW team is introducing, as they did introduce a support spec in a 0.5 patch. I'm not going to say that it's successful because top-end players will definitely say that it's not successful, but regular folks are like, yeah, whatever, not a big deal, right? And of course, Drakthir had been being worked on for quite some time. I'm sure, this is just me guessing, I'm sure that there was a lot of work that went into creating augmentation well before we even knew about it. But what's to say that they haven't been doing it with other classes as well? We might see 1 or 2 more, or this might be kind of a semi-regular thing, but I doubt it. I'm just putting in the thought, though. Heritage Armor. So this could be a fun one. So there's only 3 Heritage Armor quests, or there are only 3 races left that don't have Heritage Armor: the Pandaren, the Draenei, and the Troll. Now, here's what could possibly happen. We might see 2, maybe 3 rounds of Heritage Armor quests come in. I have a feeling it's 2, and here's how it would work. 1 round would be the Draenei and the Trolls, and the other round would be the Pandaren, because what we've seen lately, we've seen Heritage Armor come in pairs. We've had Orcs and Humans come in as a pair. We've had, or we're going to have the Undead and the Night Elves come in as a pair as well. In the case here, Draenei and Troll, while they're not exactly like opposites of each other, like the Orcs and Humans and the Undead and Night Elves, this is all that we have left. So we might see that pairing come in. And as for the Pandaren, we have seen, that they are a race that can be played by both factions. So we might as well have that be like one grand reveal. I mean, maybe they'll do all 3 at once, but I don't think they need to necessarily. I don't think they need to like kind of force that out or rush that out. And of course, they could do 3 rounds. They could do Pandaren, Draenei, and Trolls as a separate thing. But I have a feeling it's going to be 2 rounds. Draenei and Troll, and then Pandaren. And now and this will be pretty cool. All right, so Mythic Plus dungeon predictions, and this kind of well, I'll point out the Pandaren real quick, but Mythic Plus dungeon predictions. Chat and I, we kind of sort of pulled this out of our ass, but we tried to introduce logic where we could. So Dawn of the Infinite, that's going to take up 2 slots, 2 of the 8 Mythic Plus dungeon slots for season 3. Because there's some kind of Emerald Dreamy kind of stuff going on, we thought, okay, maybe Darkheart Thicket would be a good pick, so that's 3. Everbloom, not so much. I'm not really convinced that Everbloom and Emerald Dream are really related, but it's plants, so screw it. Let's just go ahead and put it in there. So that's 4. Thrown to the Tides would be another one because of the possible maybe kind of links to Queen Ashara and perhaps something that leads into the Void. And then we'll bring back two dungeons from Dragonflight Season 1. Nokud Offensive and Ruby Life Pools. As for why, I don't know. I wasn't too fond. They were kind of hard. Ruby Life is just wrecks me. Not Nokud. Actually, Nokud wasn't so bad. But maybe they'll bring back like the favorites from season 1. And then finally, Shadowpen Monastery. Part of this is predicated on, hey, maybe in a 0.5 patch they'll introduce the Pandaren Heritage Armor, and this having this would make sense. But kind of, sort of, maybe doubt it. But those are my picks. Not a whole lot of logic put into these, but just something to think about. New Brawlers Guild season. Haven't seen a Brawlers Guild since Shadowlands. There is a big clamor for some more difficult single player progression, but maybe not something at the level of the Mage Tower. Although I would love to see like new Mage Tower challenges and rewards that come from that. But hey, a new Brawlers Guild would be cool too. I could do with like a ton of new shirts, and I myself, I haven't done a lot of participating in the Brawlers Guild, and I'm going forward. I'm definitely going to do that in the future. It'd be cool to have. Other tough single player content. Again, I already mentioned Brawlers Guild, but speaking a bit more broadly, there could be other stuff too. Like there might be like an Emerald Dream version of Horrific Visions, so it'd be like a Dream Visions where we see now we see Stormwind, but in the Emerald Dream form, which is really there's like no Stormwind at all. It's just a big forest or something like that. But we could see something like that. Maybe it's being invaded by the Nightmare. It could go that route. But I think that at least in general, seeing more single player content that lets players stretch their own skill level is always a plus, preferably if it's something that feels more evergreen, something that will easily last a while. An archaeology rework got squeezed in here. I kind of doubt it. I doubt that we're going to see it come in a mid expansion. It doesn't feel like something that we would really prioritize in, but at the same time, because archaeology is not exactly a player power thing, they can put it in at any time. I just don't really think it's going to be something that they'll put into a major or a minor patch or anything like that, but it's worth mentioning because people have been wanting it and they've been asking for it. Big things and small things could be happening during the season, including possible marriage between Bane Bloodhoof and Mela High Totem. High Totem? Shit. I think I got that right. Could be a thing. But more along these lines, just smaller stories, little things, quest lines. We've seen a number of those happen throughout seasons 1 and 2. I hope to see more of that sort of stuff where it's like just, a certain on a given week, boom, we get like a little bit of a quest line. Not a big deal, not a huge impact, but something to just advance the story a little bit. My chat's asking, marriage they just met, they did not just meet, they met in Legion. And it's been a while since Legion, plus a time skip. So wouldn't surprise me. Would not surprise me. And then more dungeon restoration. We've been seeing this throughout Dragonflight, where certain dungeons with discontinued items and cosmetics, they've been not exactly restored, but they've had some new life breathed into them, and I think it's worked off pretty well. It's been able to get players distracted by other activities, doing other things. Like when 10.15 came out, it was really surprising. One of my guildmates, they just went all in for it, and they usually just like raid log. They raid log. They normally do like a couple of dungeons. They get their KSM, KSH, and then they just raid log and that's it. But this dude was like just in it for weeks, just hard farming the stuff from Nax until he got everything that he wanted. And he just showed up one day, and he straight up made the warlock set right before our eyes, right before a right before a Neltharian's echo pull. I'm like, all right, show off. But it was cool. I think it's a great thing to add to the game, a fun distraction that that helps to boost the player economy and get people moving, get people talking. As for which dungeons, though, I'm not sure. I think there's only so many dungeons left that have had items removed. But I'm sure you folks at home and elsewhere know of a couple, at least more than a couple, that you'd love to see come back. And then the last but not least, BFA time walking is more than likely going to come at some point during the season. Might not be 10.2, but probably a 0.5, 0.7 patch. That seems to be a pretty easy mark. And then as for the 0.7 patch, I think we're going to see something. We're going to see a similar vibe. We're seeing patterns, and WoW loves doing like these kind of predictable patterns when it comes to their development. Where a 0.5 patch is going to have like certain big things, 0.7 patches are going to introduce what's next, and like a possible 10.3 or wherever we get to, and that's it. That's the list of stuff that may happen during season 3, and there's a lot of stuff that I haven't mentioned that I was trying to think of, just didn't really come to mind. So I'd love to hear some of your ideas, your thoughts, your predictions, or your pushback. Oh my God, Soul, I can't believe that you said archaeology is going to become a thing. Ugh, you might as well say player housing will come back, which I really hope for. But that's it from me. Please feel free to share your thoughts, like the video, subscribe for more content, stay safe, stay healthy, and as always, stay breezy.